Nightland is one of the greatest tales of cosmic horror ever written. It tells of a time, aeons from our present age, when the sun has died and all the world is covered in an everlasting darkness. The last millions of humanity have taken refuge in a great pyramid of gray metal, the Last Redoubt. It is surrounded by a thin ring of power called the air clog that protects them from the terrors of the night. Any human who leaves the safety of the Last Redoubt risks not only his life, but his very soul. The Nightland is a story of a man who awakens into a world millions of years after the death of his wife. He is reincarnated with the subconscious memories of our own time, when the sun still shone upon the world, and the great powers of evil had not yet come to place mankind under siege. The geography of the Nightland is one of wonders and horrors, and only a little understood, even by the men of that time. Standing from an embrasure at the top of the Last Redoubt, nearly 8 miles high, the man looks through the great spyglass and sees glimpses of monsters in the darkness. Looking through the spyglass towards the northwest, he sees the bright glare of the fire from the red pit shine upwards against the underside of the vast chin of the watching thing of the Northwest Watcher. That which has watched from the beginning and until the opening of the gateway of eternity came into my thoughts as I looked through the glass, the words of Osworth, the ancient poet. The Watchers, mountains of living watchfulness and hideous and steadfast intelligence. They do not move, nor ever make a sound, and yet all those millions of humanity in the great redoubt can feel their malevolent gaze upon them. They are forever watching the pyramid through the darkness, waiting for the day of doom, when the earth current shall fail, and the air clog will disperse. To the right of the red pit there lay a long sinuous glare, the veil of red fire, and beyond that for many dreary miles, the blackness of the Nightland, across which came the coldness of light from the plain of blue fire. Then, on the very borders of the unknown lands, there lay a range of low volcanoes, which lit up far away in the outer darkness. The black hills were shown the 7 lights, which neither twinkled, nor moved, nor faltered through eternity, and of which even the great spyglass could make no understanding. Nor had any adventurer from the pyramid ever come back to tell aught of them. For to travel into the Nightland was to risk not only life, but the spirit of life. Looking towards the north lay the House of Silence, and in that house were many lights and no sound, and so had it been through an uncountable eternity of years. Always those steady lights and no whisper of sound, not even such as the distant microphones could have discovered. And the danger of this house was accounted the greatest danger of all those lands. And passing by the House of Silence wound the road where the silent ones walk. And concerning this road nothing was known, however many believe that of all the works about the mighty pyramid, it was alone the one that was built, long ages past, of healthy human toil and labor. And on this point alone had 1,000 books and more been writ, and all contrary, and so to no end, as is ever the way in such matters. And as it was with the road where the silent ones walk, so it was with all those other monstrous things. Whole libraries had been made upon this and upon that, and many 1,000 million books mouldered into the forgotten dust of the earlier world. And far away in the southeast there are 3 silver fire holes that shone before the thing that nods. Southward of this, but nearer, there rose the vast bulk of the watching thing of the southeast Watcher. And to the right and to the left of the squat monster burned the torches, half a mile upon each side, yet sufficient light they threw to show the lumbered forward head of the never-sleeping brute. To the east, as the man stood there in the quietness of the sleeping time on the 1000th plateau, he heard a far, dreadful sound deep in the lightless east, and presently again a strange, dreadful laughter, deep as a low thunder among the mountains. And because this sound came odd whiles from the unknown lands beyond the Valley of the Hounds, that far and never-seen place was named the country whence come the great laughter. Yet presently, in a little the laughter died away into that eastern darkness, and he turned the spyglass upon the giant's pit, which lay to the south of the giant's kilns. And these same kilns were tended by the giants, and the light of the kilns was red and fitful, and threw wavering shadows and lights across the mouth of the pit, so that he saw giants crawling up out of the pit, but not properly seen, by reason of the dance of the shadows. And presently, alone in all the miles of that night grey road, the man saw in the field of the glass a quiet cloaked figure moving along shrouded and looking neither to right nor left. And thus was it with these beings ever. It was told about in the redoubt that they would harm no human, if but the human did keep a fair distance from them, but that it were wise never to come close upon one. And so, searching the road with his gaze, he passed beyond this silent one, and past the place where the road, sweeping vastly to the southeast, was strangely lit a space by the light from the silver fire holes, and thus at last to where it swayed to the south of the dark palace, and thence southward still, until it passed round to the westward, beyond the mountain bulk of the watching thing in the south, the hugest monster in all the visible nightlands. The spyglass showed it to the man with clearness, a living hill of watchfulness, known to humanity as the Watcher of the South. It brooded there, squat and tremendous, hunched over the pale radiance of the glowing dome. Much had been writ concerning this odd, vast watcher, for it had grown out of the blackness of the south, unknown lands 1,000,000 years gone, and the steady growing nearness of it had been noted and set out at length by the men they called monstruacans, so that it was possible to search in the libraries of the redoubt and learn of the very coming of this beast in the olden time. 1,000,000 years gone came the South Watcher out of the blackness of the south, and grew steadily nearer through 20,000 years, but so slow that in no 1 year could a man perceive that it had moved. Yet it had movement, and had come thus far upon its road to the redoubt, when the glowing dome rose out of the ground before it, growing slowly, and this had stayed the way of the monster, so that through an eternity it had looked toward the pyramid, across the pale glare of the dome, and seeming to have no power to advance nearer. Because of this, much had been writ to prove that there were other forces than evil at work in the nightlands about the Last Redoubt, for there were many things in that time which seemed to make clear that even as the forces of darkness were loose upon the end of man, so were there other forces out to do battle with the terror, though in ways most strange and unthought of by the human mind. And so in a while, having listened to the sorrowful sound which came over the grey dunes from the country of wailing, which lay to the south, midway between the redoubt and the Watcher of the South. The man passed upon one of the moving roadways over to the southwestern side of the pyramid and looked from a narrow embrasure thence far down into the deep valley, which was 4 miles deep, and in which was the pit of the red smoke. And the mouth of this pit was 1 full mile across, and the smoke of the pit filled the valley at times, so that it seemed but as a glowing red circle amid dull, thunderous clouds of redness. Yet the red smoke rose never much above the valley, so that there was clear sight across the country beyond. And there, along the further edge of that great depth, were the towers, each a mile high, gray and quiet, but with a shimmer upon them. Beyond these, south and west of them, was the enormous bulk of the Southwest Watcher, and from the ground rose what is named the I-beam, a single ray of gray light which came out of the ground and lit the right eye of the monster. And because of this light, that eye had been mightfully examined through unknown thousands of years, and some held that the eye looked through that light steadfastly at the pyramid, but others set out that the light blinded it, and was the work of those other powers which were abroad to do combat with the evil forces. But however this may be, as the man stood there in the embrasure and looked at the thing through the spyglass, it seemed to his soul that the brute looked straightly at him, unwinking and steadfast, and fully of a knowledge that he spied upon it. To the north of this, in the direction of the west, the man saw the place where the Silent Ones kill, and this was so named because there, maybe 10,000 years ago, certain humans adventured from the pyramid, came off the road where the Silent Ones walk, and into that place, and were immediately destroyed. And this was told by one who escaped, though he died also very quickly, for his heart was frozen. And this no one could explain, but so it was set out in the records. Far away beyond the place where the Silent Ones kill, in the very mouth of the western night, was the place of the abhumans, where was lost the road where the Silent Ones walk in a dull, green, luminous mist. And of this place nothing was known, though much it held the thoughts and attention thinkers and imaginers. For some said that there was a place of safety, differing from the redoubt, as we of this day suppose heaven to differ from the earth, and that the road led thence, but was barred by the abhumans, and this can only be set down here for record, but with no thought to justify or uphold it. From the northeastern wall of the redoubt, the man looked thence with his spyglass at the Watcher of the northeast, the Crowned Watcher it was called, and that within the air above its vast head there hung always a blue, luminous ring, which shed a strange light downward over the monster, showing a vast, wrinkled brow, upon which a whole library had been writ, but putting to the shadow all the lower face, all save the ear, which came out from the back of the head, and turned toward the redoubt, and had been said by some observers in the past to have been seen to quiver, but how that might be, none knew, for no man of those days had seen such a thing. And beyond the watching thing was the place where the Silent Ones are never, close by the giant road, which was bounded upon the far side by the giant sea. And upon the far side of that was a road which was always named the road by the quiet city, for it passed along that place where burned forever the constant and never-moving lights of a strange city, but no glass had ever shown life there, neither had any light ever ceased to burn. And beyond that again was the black mist, and here that the valley of the hounds ended towards the light of the quiet city. And so have I set out something of that land, and of those creatures and circumstances which beset those last few of humanity, waiting until the day of doom, when our earth current shall cease, and leave us helpless to the watchers and to the abundant terror.